Hello and welcome to Gadberry Leadership Coaching. This series is all about change. You know, leaders are all about change. Change is a part of everyday life. I love what John Maxwell says, change is inevitable, growth is optional. There couldn't be a truer statement because change is coming. Change happens. You know, sometimes it even cracks me up how we'll avoid change or we'll resist change. And the truth is what we're wanting is healthy organizations. Well, healthy things grow, growing things change. And then when they start changing, it's like we get aggravated or frustrated at the change. I want to encourage you today with these 3 sessions that we're going to do about how to be positively effective when it comes to change. Change is very important. As leaders, that's what we do. We're navigators. We navigate towards change. We forecast. We look out into the future and we ask ourselves, what's coming? What changes are going to happen? What are we going to see coming in the future? How do we need to posture ourselves and prepare our business or our entrepreneurial efforts or our ministries or whatever for what's coming? And then we start trying to navigate towards that change. It's very important that we take that approach. A few years ago, over 6 years ago now, I was in an organization. I was a senior associate pastor at a church in Oklahoma City. And great church, still my home church. I love them very much. They're like my family. The pastors there are my best friends. We just love them. But we knew it was time to make a transition. We had been there for 13 years when we began to recognize that change was coming. We stayed for another 2 years after we realized change was coming, and we navigated the process with the most wisdom that we possibly could, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to move into our future pursuing what we believed was the right thing for our family and for the future of what we were created to do. And so, you know, I come from a faith background. I am a pastor, so some of the things you hear me say are probably going to come from that perspective. Don't let that throw you off at all, because a lot of the principles we talk about are just really good, solid leadership principles. And a lot of them come out of the biblical worldview that I have and will be beneficial to you. So if that's not what you are, or if you're not a believer today or a follower of Christ, don't let that throw you off. Just follow with the principles because they will be effective for your life. When we went through that, though, it was a huge change. I mean, when you're somewhere for 15 years and then you change, it is extensive. Now, the good thing about that is the culture that I was in, we were very used to change. We tried to change things when we thought things were irrelevant or we thought things weren't working. We were not averse to change. We were not afraid of it. My leader wasn't, and neither was I. So that was good. So we were already kind of positioned and postured for change, but there were a lot of things that happened that were difficult and were hard. The patience that we had to have, the study and the research that we had to do, the conversations that were had, the mindset shifts and changes that we had to make were incredible. And that 2 years was a very challenging time. But I'm telling you right now, when you do it right and you have the right thinking, and in the next session, I'm going to talk about how to have effective transition, the best practices in transitioning from one place to another. And I'll talk to you about that in the next session. But today I want to talk to you just about change and leading change itself. So we went through all that process, and then we came to lead another organization, leading a church in Canyon, Texas. Great church, Summit Church. We are so in love with it, and just building and growing and seeing some great things. But also, while we were here, we have developed a coaching business, and so that was another change. My wife went back to teaching. She loves to teach, and she feels like that's her calling. She's now teaching. That's another change. Our daughters were growing up. My daughter met a great young man and got married. That was a change for us. She is still continuing in college. She's graduating now. That's a change. They had a grandbaby, which was an awesome change for us. They had a baby. It was a grandbaby to us. Lindley is just a beautiful blessing to our life. Our daughter, our youngest daughter, turned 16 and started driving. That was a change. All of these things change. And life is filled with change. But leader, what are you going to do about it? Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. I can't think of very many things that would be more sad than going through massive changes, but not growing through massive changes. Sometimes changes are small, sometimes changes are medium, sometimes changes are enormous. But you don't want to just go through them, you want to grow through them. And to be honest, that's a choice. Change will come whether we like it or not. Whether we want it or not, it will happen. And so the way we approach it determines how it will go. So how are we approaching change? I'm going to give you just a few little comments here and then we'll be done. But how we approach change determines how effective we will be in fulfilling vision. Now that's the truth. How we approach change will determine how effective in fulfilling the vision, the goal that we have for our business, for our family, for our own lives, whatever the case may be. However we embrace change, however we approach it, that's going to determine how well we do in accomplishing our vision. So let's talk about how people deal with change. First, the first group of people deal with change by resisting change. You've met people like this. Maybe you've been a person like this. And here's what that means. When a person resists change, it just means they want to keep everything just the way it is and actively struggle and fight against change. I've had friends like this, and it's different reasons. Some people don't want change or resist change because they're controllers. They just want to be in control of everything. They think their world will be extremely safe and secure if they can just control everything. So when anything changes in the context of their control, it turns their world upside down. Some people resist change just because it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. They like things the way they are. I think all of us have a little bit of this. You know, we get into a routine. We get into a way we like things. We get things set up in our life, the things that we enjoy, the things that we're comfortable with, the things that are most convenient for us. And then something happens and change happens. And our first reaction sometimes is just resist. Like, I don't want this to happen. I'm going to do everything I can to fight against this happening. Well, in an organization, and when you're leading an organization, you know what happens when this goes on. It's a struggle. You can't win people like this. They're going to fight against the change. They're going to talk bad about the change. They're going to try to, set up an agenda that keeps everything the way it is so that they don't have to change. That's how a lot of people deal with change. There's another group of people that tolerate change. They'll put up with the fact that things are changing, but they refuse to take part in the change. So they're like the kind of people that we're going to stand back and see what happens. I don't like it, don't want it to change. I like it the way it was, but I'm going to go ahead and tolerate it happening because I know it's inevitable, but I'm not going to take part in it. And you know, the sad part about this person is they really have the propensity to grow with the organization, but they're making a choice not to grow because they're saying, I'm just going to tolerate it. So here's what's happened. The organization changes. The people in the organization change. This person has tolerated the change, but has not participated in the change. So when everything has finally changed, they seem like the odd man out. And they end up not making it in the organization simply because they were unwilling to participate. The third type of person in dealing with change is people who accept change. Now, these are people who they acknowledge change and they accept the fact that things are changing, but they're not actively helping the change happen effectively. In other words, I call these late adopters. These are people that are probably going to get on the change, but they're going to wait to see if it turns out. They're going to let somebody else take the risk. They're going to let somebody else be in the front lines. They're going to let somebody else be zealous and get out there and say, let's do this and let's make this happen. Now, if it does go well, then they'll probably kind of gradually come in and say, yeah, this is great. I'm glad it happened. Now I'm going to insert myself. But the truth is there are a lot of people that live in that accept change realm, but they're not really helping to make it happen effectively. They're not standing in the way, and they're not just observing, but they're not being effective in their help towards it happening. There's another type of person, and I love this group. They're people I call early adopters. In other words, they embrace change. They see the change and actively help it happen effectively. Now, these people, I love them because you got a leader, and this leader gets up and they say, look, we've been talking about change that needs to happen. Many of you have been in the meetings. We've discussed it. We've worked through it. We've looked at the problems. We've come up with solutions. We've practically developed all of these different things that we're going to do, and now we're going to implement it. Here's how we're going to implement it. Here's when we're going to implement it, and here's who's going to implement it. And these people are like, yes, I want to be on the team. I want to be a part of it. Take me there. Let's go. This has needed to happen. They've probably seen it needing to happen for a long time, and we are all about it. These are the kind of people that cause your vision to jump off. They cause great things to happen. And so you want people like this. Now we come to us, to leaders. And this is a group of people that really make the difference. And these are people who lead change. They're not resisting it. They're not tolerating it. They're not just accepting it. They're embracing it. But beyond that, they're leading it. In other words, here's what it means. It means see the change that needs to happen and become a part of it wholeheartedly by leading others to it and building teams to accomplish it. You know, when we went through our change, the major transition for our family, moving from one state to another, moving from one organization to another, starting different things, creating a whole new vision, all of this, man, it required us to look out into the future, to think about it, and from our perspective, pray about it, to really get clear about where we were going and what we thought our life was about and what we feel like was moving forward and what was not moving forward. And we just got clarity and we got focus, and then we gathered people and we began to cast vision. We began to clearly define, this is where we're going, this is what we need to achieve. Have we made mistakes in the process? Yes. Have things moved not as fast at times as we wanted? Yes. Have we faced obstacles? Yes. Have we had people issues? Yes. All of these things that happen in every leadership scenario. But one thing we have known for sure, we're not just embracing change, we are leading change. We know where it is we need to go, and we're going to take people there. These are people who make real difference. It's made a real difference in people's lives. There are people that are with us now that their life would not be the same if it hadn't been for this connection and for the leadership of change in their lives. The key to effective implementation of fresh new vision is personal growth. Now, that may sound odd, but let me just be honest with you, leader. And I'm almost finished, so I want you to really lean in. Let me be honest with you, leader. If you're not changing in your own personal life, if things aren't getting better, if things aren't improving, if you're not changing, if there are not things about your life that have changed, don't fool yourself into thinking you're going to lead change. Because we lead from the integrity of who we are, the completeness of who we are. The overflow of what's happening in us is how we lead others. And anything short of that comes off as insincere, inauthentic, and hypocritical. If you're not personally developing, if you're not personally growing, if you're not reading and studying and researching and developing yourself and the people most directly around you, don't fool yourself into thinking you can lead change. Many times when I see people effective in leading change, I look at their lives and I see nothing's changed in their life in 6 months. Nothing has changed in their life in the last year. There's no change happening in their life. So the first thing is you have to really start growing personally. So if you're in a season where you've just kind of let things go and you've gotten busy doing details and you're not personally growing yourself and changing yourself, man, it's a big mistake because you're not going to be able to lead change. Many times when we're faced with implementing something new, we get focused on the change itself and spend all of our time striving to accomplish it and the neglect of our own personal growth and development, not realizing that what will give us the most momentum is continuing to change ourselves and continuing to personally grow. And when you personally grow and develop, it will bring the leadership momentum you need to lead change in other people. Personal growth will cause you to embrace and lead change. Because when you start growing personally, you want things to change. You start seeing things that need to change. Because you're changing. You're evolving into a better leader. You're embracing a greater capacity. You're looking at things from a broader perspective. And now you're seeing, man, this needs to change. And man, we could do better here. And man, this is coming down the road and we need to get ready for that. So personal growth will cause you to embrace and lead change. When we have struggles with change, it is not the change that is the problem. It's whether or not we're going to surrender ourselves to the development that needs to happen in us for that change to be led. There is an Old Testament story of a young man by the name of Joseph, who his circumstances changed drastically and to no fault of his own. His brothers didn't like him. His brothers sold him into slavery. He worked in a man by the name of Potiphar's home. Then he was accused of something he didn't do. He was thrown into prison. He had to deal with the circumstances of that. And then finally a revelation came and he was able to use his gift and his calling to be elevated into leadership in the nation of Egypt. It's an amazing story, but the reason it is so amazing is that all of the circumstances that Joseph faced, his circumstances changed, but he continued to grow and develop his gifts and his strengths and his abilities, and his capacity just continued to enlarge. So at the point when he was at his lowest, he was truly being prepared for his highest elevation. So Joseph's circumstances changed, but his vision didn't. Joseph's relationships changed, but his vision didn't. Joseph's position changed, but his vision didn't. He learned to embrace and lead change towards the completion and fulfillment of the vision that he had from a young age. So listen, let me just encourage you. You can lead change. You can bring change. But it's going to happen as an overflow and outgrowth of the personal change that's happening in you because you commit to a growth plan every day. That you decide daily, I'm going to do four or five things that will make me grow every day. And without fail, every day I will do these. The most successful people I've ever seen, in across the board, this is true. You can ask every one of them, there's a few things that they do every day without fail. And it's all about personal growth. So I just want to encourage you, if you want to lead change, if you want to embrace change, if you want to affect change, it's going to happen by you changing yourself and growing yourself. So thanks for being a part of Gadberry Leadership Coaching. I hope this has helped you. And I will have some materials that go along with this that you can read and some questions that you can answer for yourself that will help you move down the road to personal change. I'll share with you what my growth strategy daily is, and maybe that'll help you be able to develop one for yourself. So the question I want to leave you with is, do you have a plan for growth? A personal growth plan. If you don't, let me help you create one, because I know it'll change your life for the better. God bless you.